Hey there everyone, welcome back to another Diablo 4 video. I'm Captain Beefy, this is the Game Vault, and I've played almost 300 hours of Diablo 4 in a little over a month since it's been released. And I kind of want to sound off, yeah, that's bad. I kind of want to sound off and give you my review of the game. So, let's cue up the music, and we'll get right to it. First and foremost, as always, I always mention I've been a Diablo fan since the beginning, so we'll rip through that part real quick, played all of them except Diablo Immortal, and was looking forward to this one. And I gotta tell you, right off the bat, it didn't disappoint. Now, there are good things, there are middling things, and there are bad things about the game, as there are with pretty much every game out there. Nothing is perfect. You'll never get a 10 out of 10 from me, and you'll never get a 0 out of 10 either. Or a 1 out of 10, I should say. But for Diablo, let's start off with what's good about it. First off, it's gorgeous. The game looks great. You know, for the style of game that it has, it's got an amazing amount of detail. The world is very... each region has its own flavor to it, its own feel to it. And you know what region of the game you're in based on the way it looks. From the... snowy areas and fractured peaks to, you know, up in over in the dry steppes with the kind of like not quite desert-like, but you know what I'm saying. It's got a great look to it overall. Monster design's fantastic. The character customization and design is great. The fact that you can transmog your armor, beautiful. I love being able to do that. There's nothing worse than running around a game looking like a clown because you're mismatching pieces of armor based off the stats, and you've got, you know, leather breeches on with a chainmail vest and plate gloves and, you know, a headband. It's, you know, you could look silly in some of these games, especially older games before transmog became so popular. That was one of my biggest complaints about Cyberpunk 20, well, not one of my biggest complaints, but that was a big complaint about Cyberpunk 2077 when it came out, is that you had no transmog. You had no way to change how you looked, so you were forced to either look like a complete moron running around like a clown with the best gear, or you looked cool as hell, but you weren't necessarily wearing the best gear you had available to you. So, yeah, you have some great looking characters. There's a nice variety of characters with 5 different classes to play. I understand that more classes will be coming along with, I think, the 2 DLCs that are planned for the game, from what I've heard. Maybe we'll have 1 more, maybe we'll have 2 more classes. A lot of speculation on what they'll be. One of them they're thinking of is probably going to be something like the Paladin or the Crusader type class, which would be cool. We haven't seen anything like that, you know, maybe like a Knight Pentiment or something like that. Who knows? So, but currently, you know, starting off with 5 different classes, that gives you a lot of options right off the bat. And that's awesome. I think the story itself is an engaging story. It's very interesting. The character of Lilith is quite a fascinating character, actually. And if you really pay attention to her, and I'm thinking of doing a video really looking at her motives and everything and what she was trying to do. I think if you really look at her, yeah, she's clearly the villain, but she does have a little nuance to her, you know? So you kind of feel for her in some ways. Until she's trying to kill you, of course. But, yeah, so it's a fascinating bad guy, you know? And good stories are often judged by the bad guy, you know? You can have a great hero and all that, and a great hero is fun, fantastic and all that. If the bad guy sucks, you know, it doesn't feel right? But you look at some of the greatest villains in history, your Hannibal Lecters, your Darth Vaders, Thanos, you know. Those stories are made better because the villain is so good, so powerful, so awful, you know, that it really helps. So that's great. I love the story. I love the villain. Like I said, graphically it's perfect, I think. You know, the whole set design and everything's fun. The mechanics of the game, that's kind of a mixed bag, I think, in some ways. Like, and we'll talk about some individual stuff. Like, the loot system is imperfect, and in an ARPG, it's kind of tough to get a really good, solid loot system down, in my opinion, because you're either going to make it like Diablo 3, I think, ramped you up so fast in loot that it wasn't rewarding getting it. You just felt like you got so powerful so fast that it didn't matter, you know? If you go back to Diablo 2, I haven't played the Resurrected one, but the original, I'm planning on probably picking up the Resurrected one. The original one, it felt like a grind to get the best of the loot in 2, and Diablo 4 feels more like 2 felt, where you're really grinding for some of that top-end gear. And I did see a video the other day, someone, I don't remember who it was talking about it. Asmongold was actually watching and reacting to the video. But he was saying that he maxed out some of his gear at a very low level, like in the 50s. And being that you can get to level 100, yeah, it feels like that part of the system's a little broken, the loot system. Not to mention the uber rares, which have almost zero chance of dropping for you. I mean, you and I will probably never see one, unless we're one of the extremely lucky ones, or if they change the drop rate in some way, shape, or form, you know. There was that brief moment in the Helltides where they were dropping fairly rapidly, all things considered, but still, out of all the players that were playing, and I have no idea how many players played during that time frame, only 142 of them were found, but still, you know, that's a lot more than were found all the weeks previous to that, leading up to it, and since then. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. So hopefully they'll tinker with that a little bit and make it a little bit easier, you know. And I remember even Asmongold was saying one of the great things would be to, if you defeat Uber Lilith, you get that gear. You know, you deserve it. You defeated Uber Lilith, you deserve the Uber legendaries. And he's absolutely right, you know. I mean, that's crazy. That's the hardest thing to do in the game. So, yeah, the loot system leaves a little bit to be desired in that way, but otherwise, I think it's fantastic. I love the fact that you can do so much with it, that you can extract the legendary aspect from a hunk of gear, put it in storage, and then imprint it onto a rare piece of equipment, making it legendary, you know. You can do that with basic legendaries, sacred legendaries, and the ancestral ones, so that's awesome. The fact that you can also re-roll a single thing on a piece of gear is sweet. It does get expensive, and if you don't do it in a way that makes sense, it gets really expensive. So I did a whole video on, you know, fixing a piece of gear up, taking a basic yellow piece, a rare piece, and turning it into a legendary, re-rolling something on it, and putting the sockets in it and all that. That's something else you can do on items that allow sockets, is you can socket them, 1 or 2 sockets, depending on what's allowed for that piece of gear. So you can really impact what you're finding. Just because you find a legendary, if the legendary kind of sucks, but the legendary aspect's great, well, just extract it and put it in your box. And then when you find that piece of equipment that can use that legendary aspect, put it on there, you know. But make sure you have it already re-rolled if you're going to re-roll something, you know. So there's a lot of customization available for the gear. And then the fact that you can also transmog on top of it's awesome. So it doesn't matter what it looks like, you're not going to look stupid, you know. You can really make yourself look like a complete and total badass. The skill system is pretty good. The skill tree is pretty, you know, it's pretty standard, I think. There are only a few meta builds out there that seem to be really viable in the late game from what I've been seeing. I'm working with a Blizzard build. I don't follow the meta. I don't go out there and watch these videos on, you know, how to do 1 billion damage with this Druid build or whatever. How to defeat Uber Lilith in 5 seconds with a sorcerer. I've built my character from the beginning, and I've chose a certain direction, and I've stuck with it. And, you know, I'm level 86 or 7 with her right now, and it's getting a little more challenging now, you know, at these higher levels to continue with this build the way it exists. And I don't know, maybe I'm just a couple pieces of equipment away from it, away from it being more powerful and better, or maybe I need to do some tweaking on my skills, which is probably the route I need to go. There's no way you're going to ever get even close to using all of the skills in the skill tree. It's not that kind of a game where you can just keep leveling and getting skills. You only get skill points up until level 50. After that, you get Paragon points. If you played Diablo 3, you remember the Paragon system there. It was pretty vanilla. You know, it was cool, but it doesn't hold a candle to the new Paragon board. I think the new Paragon board is an amazing part of this game. It's probably one of the best parts about leveling and getting skills and all that. After level 50, you get 4 Paragon points per level at each quarter of leveling up. And you've got these boards, and there's several of them. You can piece them together, turn them, and all that. And you can choose things like plus 5 points to strength or intelligence, whatever. And then you've got rare nodes on there that do some cool stuff. You've got a legendary node on it. You've got glyph nodes where you can stick a glyph in there, which is going to impact everything within a certain radius of it. You can level those glyphs up to increase the radius of it. And there's so much going on with that Paragon board. And that Paragon board is really where it's at, I think, in character creation and making the best possible character you can have. Is going to be, by understanding that Paragon board. And I think it's one of the best parts of the game, but it's also horrible because you cannot reset it. You can reset your entire skill tree, right? With the push of a button, boom. It'll cost you some gold, but you can do it. You can reset your Paragon board, yeah. But you can't do it at the push of a button. You got to do it point by point by point. And to me, that is hugely frustrating. I would, oh man. So hopefully they're going to add that in later on, but I think that's a real negative here on the game, is that you just can't reset that entire Paragon board with the click of a button, even if it costs you all the money in the world. Now I understand one of the rewards you're going to get from Season 1 is the ability to reset your character. And that will include stats and the Paragon board. I don't know if that's something that's going to be bound to a single character, or if you're going to be able to transfer that into your box and use that on any character. So I'll be curious to see how that works out. That'll be cool if that's kind of like a seasonal thing on every season, and you can just kind of throw them in your box, and if you do have a character you want to try something new with, just use it on that character. You're not forced to use it on your character that you built up for the season. No, we'll see, whatever the case may be. So those are great systems. Then you've got some other cool stuff there. You've got the gameplay itself, I find to be rewarding and fun. The fighting, different methods of dealing damage. It's very complex, and I'm looking for a really good formula that shows you exactly how damage is calculated, because you start with your base damage of your weapon, say it's 100 damage, and then you've got all these modifiers to it that some are multiplicative, some are additive, and so forth and so on. I don't really know how the formula works. I wish Blizzard would give us an official look at it. But it's cool because there's so many ways to deal damage. You can deal frost damage, fire damage, lightning damage. You can deal critical damage. You can deal vulnerable damage, vulnerable against chilled enemies, vulnerable against or damage against crowd-controlled enemies. And then all these things add up, and a creature can have several statuses on it, and you can hit a critical hit, so you're going to get sometimes these insane numbers. And there's overpowered damage. Lucky hit can also impact that. So, it's really cool how that works out. I just wish they were a little clearer to explain the formula. And I know I've seen some guys out there who've tried to work it out. And I'm going to I did a video on different tools to use for Diablo, and I've been looking for a couple others. I'll probably do a follow-up one for some other tools as I find useful things. But one I would love to see is a damage calculator, something where maybe it's just a Google Sheet or something where you could plug in your numbers to potentially see how much damage you can do based on your percentages and your basic weapon damage numbers. I'd be curious to see that. We'll have to look into that. Going back to the game itself, not only graphically, but I think the the voice acting is phenomenal. I mean, it really is. There's been a lot of good games lately. Voice acting has gone so far up since the days of, a Jill sandwich in the original Resident Evil game back in PlayStation 1 or 2 days. I mean, my God, that was terrible. So voice acting in video games, I think it used to be kind of like a joke, where real actors would probably just turn their nose up and, I'm not gonna, participate in that. It's a video game. That's for little kids. Now you got guys like Keanu Reeves, Idris Elba. You got all kinds of guys in these video games now that are lending their voices and sometimes their likeness as well, and it's just fantastic. I think it's great, I played Dying Light 2 recently with, what's her name, Rosario Dawson in it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Rosario Dawson, look at that, that's crazy. So, I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, Diablo 4, the voice acting's great. The guys all have that vaguely European kind of accent that gives you that old world feel to it, and they all go for it. The way they talk, sometimes when you find a journal in one of the dungeons or something, and you pick it up, you don't have to read it. Oh, thank you so much for that, Diablo. I hate reading crap in games. I hate stopping and having to read lore. These guys just read it off to you. They do it with a great accent, and they do it with a great canter to it. And everything sounds perfect, and they just enough nuance to it to make it really, really exciting and fun. So that's great too. Now I'm in the end game. It's preseason now. We got season coming out in just under a week. So, I beat the game, beat the campaign, got a main character up to the level 80s, got a couple other characters into the 20s and so forth that I've just farted around with a little bit. No real dedication to them. I haven't played hardcore yet. I've played a little bit of PvP. I've done Helltides. I've done all the endgame content, Nightmare Dungeons, world bosses, Legion events, all that kind of fun stuff. And I've tried pretty much everything you can do in the game. I've got every bit of renown, every area is discovered, every dungeon's discovered, every altar of Lilith is discovered, and right now I'm kind of grinding through the side quests to get them finished up, because I'd like to just 100% all that crap just for the fun of it, as I wait for Season 1. And I'm in the endgame, and the endgame's pretty good. A lot of people are hating on it, saying it's horrible and it's boring and there's nothing to look forward to and all that stuff. And I did a whole video on that a day or two ago, or maybe 3 now. And, I disagree. I don't think the endgame is horrible, but I do think it could be spicier and it could be better. And it does feel like there was a dropped ball at the endgame, because there's something called breaking points with weapon levels and armor levels, and the last breaking point is, I think, in the low 700s, like 720 or something like that. And what a breaking point is when you take a item level and it's below a certain number, it's going to have a range of stats from X to Y, and those will be fixed stats that it can have, say 1 to 10. But then when you break it above that level, it's going to have a different range of stats, and it's going to re-roll. So the same piece of equipment, let's say, from, and we're just going to use round numbers here, at level 10 it breaks. So let's say from level 1 to 9, it gives you a range of 1 to 10. But as soon as you hit level 10, the range changes from 5 to 15. Okay, and again, I'm using round numbers. These are nothing accurate to the game. So you may have something that's a low level, but you rolled a 10 on it, so you had the best roll possible, and when you upgrade it and you get it over that level 10 to the next level, it's going to re-roll everything with that new range. So instead of being 5 to 10, it's going to be, or 1 to 10, it's going to be 5 to 15. So in theory, you could up it by 5 points, up to, from 10 to 15, but you could also re-roll it to a level 5, which kind of sucks. But in any case, just to say, but having that so low at level 700 something, I think it's somewhere in the 720s or something. I do plan on doing a video looking into that a little bit more to explain it better as I learn it better myself, so I can understand it as I, especially going into Season 1, I kind of want to rip through that and get my character through it as fast as possible and geared up as quick as possible. But I like to see how that works. But yeah, so getting those pieces of gear early, and at level 700 being done, when I've found items over 800, I think I found up to 810 or 815, something like that. And there's no breakpoint at that point. And it feels like there should be a breakpoint there, right? It's just like world tiers. World tier 1 and 2 are available at the very beginning of the game. You don't need to do anything to go to them, you just need to select them. World tier 3 requires you to finish the campaign to access it. And I think everything in it is level 50 or 53, something like that, right around there. But, you know, you want to be around that level to go through there, or if you're below that level, you want to be powerful and very good at the game. And the tier 4 starts at 70. I think that's the level the creatures were in there. So you want to be somewhere in that range, again, if you're just an average player like myself. If you're really good and you have a real good meta build and the great armor and weapons, then yeah, you could probably do it way earlier. You know, that's cool. But from 70 to 100 is nothing there, right? That's 30 levels at the end of the game that feel like... It feels like there needs to be a World Tier 5. And I've spoken about that before, and I know a lot of other people have spoken about it, and I'm kind of wondering, Blizzard hasn't come out and said anything yet, but I'm wondering if that was the plan, and it just didn't get finished in time, tested enough in time to be released with the game, and maybe it's something that's going to come down the road. Maybe we'll see it introduced in a season or in the first DLC whenever that comes out. I don't expect that for a year or so at least. Who knows, right? Who knows? But it definitely is something that feels like it should be there. And when you get there in that World Tier 5, I feel like, you know, there should be no more sacred crap dropping, no more regular legendaries. Everything should be ancestral. Everything should be, you know, level 700 something and above, and they should add another breakpoint in. Somewhere in the high 700s or right at 800 or 805 or something like that to give you the incentive to hunt down that last awesome level of gear to put yourself over the top. I feel like that is missing. And I could be wrong. But anyway, you know, that's my feelings on most of the game. Now let's talk about the bad. The bad of the game. There's only one thing that I really don't like about the game, and that's the fact that it's got the always online requirement, and that's almost, you know, something necessary to dislike for a few different reasons. I understand why it's there, piracy, duping, and all that kind of stuff. I haven't heard of any duping issues in the game yet, which is great, because there's nothing that will destroy a game quicker than rampant duping, and, you know... Yeah, it'll destroy a game, they'll get a whole bunch of people banned, and, you know, so I'm glad that hasn't happened, and if that's the price we pay, is to constantly be online to help avoid stuff like that, then it is what it is. If it helps avoid cheating too, it is what it is. Okay, I get it. I understand why they do it. I don't like it, you know. Diablo, to me, was always a very personal game. Diablo 1 I played solo, Diablo 2 I played solo, 3 I played mostly solo. This one I play mostly solo, although I do enjoy getting together with some friends once in a while, you know, and going out there and just running through nightmare dungeons or doing whatever, hell tides, and having fun, and, you know, laughing at each other when we die and stuff like that. It's cool, you know, it's kind of fun. But, yeah, but that's just a negative, I think, that online requirement. It's funny, I saw something today. You know, I played on PlayStation. I saw something today that's interesting, that if you own the game, but you're not a PlayStation Plus member, to be a PlayStation Plus member, you need that to engage in multiplayer games on the PlayStation network, right? If you're not one, you can still play the game, but you will not, I guess, see other players or be able to trade with them and have conversations and chat with them and all that. I imagine you can still go to world events. I would think they would still spawn, but maybe you have to fight that boss alone or that legion alone, and that would suck. I mean, that really sucks, you know. But hopefully it scales for you, at least in that regard. I don't know how that is. If any of you have the game on PlayStation and you don't have PlayStation Plus, let me know down in the comments how that works for you and what you think about it. You know, you're still required to be online. And you're online. You know, you're playing on Diablo servers, but you just can't do anything online-ish. It's weird. It's weird. And that's not a Diablo problem. That's a Sony problem, so that has nothing to impact my thoughts on the game. But overall, I'd say I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. You know, it'd be a lot higher if they could fix that end game. That would definitely elevate things quite a bit. You know, just by adding that World Tier 5, I think, and doing some minor improvements there. Well, by no means is the end game boring, at least not to me. I still enjoy it. I have enough things that I do between the Tree of Whispers and Hell Tides and Nightmare Dungeons and World Events. You know, I mix it up a little bit and I have fun with it. I'm not out there to power level. I'm not up there to, you know, I'm not one of those guys. I'm more of a casual player, but I'm kind of like a hybrid casual, and kind of, you know, I've also put 300 hours almost into it since its release, so I'm a little less casual than casual. So anyway, those are my thoughts. What do you think of the game so far? Do you like it? You know, with Season 1 coming up, I wanted to get this out before Season 1 was released. That is going to have a real impact, I think, on the game. I think we're going to see a lot of people returning to the game that left, and it's going to be interesting to see how all those new things work out in the game, how they integrate with the Eternal Realm, as well as with the Seasonal Realm. I'm very curious to see how all that works. I never played Seasons on Diablo 3, never really was interested in it. Diablo 3, I lost interest in pretty quick once I did the campaign, I'll be honest. I played a couple different characters through the campaign, but I had no interest in the grind and all that. It just lost interest quickly. Whereas Diablo 2 I played for years. And I can see myself playing Diablo 4 for years, especially, you know, once I get my Sorcerer built up to level 100 and I get all the best equipment for her and all that. You know, she'll go into semi-retirement, and then I'll start working on my next character and get that next class built up, you know. And then they'll make a change, they'll tweak something on the Sorcerer and maybe buff something or nerf something, so I'll say, you know what, let me dust her off and go back in and try a new build on her, you know. That's why I want the Paragon thing. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the game. I like it. Like I said, 8.5. Go ahead, tell me what you think down below in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like on the video. Share me on social media. I appreciate it. I'm trying to grow this channel day by day. And don't forget to subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications. I'll see you next time. Until then, peace.